People say that buying a house is like choosing a spouse. If you make the right choice, you will enjoy it. But if you choose wrongly based on a whim, then you will suffer unhappiness for a long time. Some of you must have heard of the term house poor or house broke. These expressions refer to when someone buys a house and cannot afford it because it is above their means. So they spend a lot on mortgages, interests, repairs, and what have you that they neglect other aspects of their lives. So I thought it would be nice to help my viewers avoid being house broke. In this video, I will explain what to consider when buying a home. Also, I will throw in 3 rules of thumb to help you make that decision. For each rule of thumb, I will highlight its advantages and disadvantages. I will also use examples that explain each of them. Before we begin, I will encourage you to like this video. Also, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so that you receive future videos from my channel. Let's start with the first rule of thumb to help you avoid getting house broke. The first rule of thumb is the 28 by 36 rule. This rule says you should spend no more than 28% of your gross income on mortgage payments. Mortgage payments can include the mortgage's principal, interest, insurance, private mortgage insurance, and property taxes. All these should be related to housing expenses. Also, you should spend no more than 36% of your gross income on total debt servicing. That means your housing and other debts like student loans, car loans, and personal loans should not take more than 36% of your gross income. This rule effectively creates 2 categories for your debts. This rule has its advantages and disadvantages. The main advantage of the 28 by 36 rule is that it helps you understand how much liability you can afford. For example, if you apply it carefully, you can afford a house within your income without affecting other areas of your life, like servicing other debts. That is why lenders always use this rule when giving out credit. Another advantage of this rule is that you can do what you enjoy if you stick to this rule. Even when things go awry financially, this rule will help you to stick within your budget because you already have something saved when your finances are better. A potential disadvantage of this rule is that it allocates much of your income to housing expenses. Overall, 36% of your income is allocated to debt servicing, including housing debts and other debts. That means if you are a person that loves to splurge, it forces you to be disciplined and frugal. I hope you are enjoying the video. Before I explain how you can apply the rule of thumb with an example, I would appreciate it if you gave the video a thumbs up. Also, subscribe with the notifications. If I get 2,000 likes video, I will produce another video similar to this one next time. Now, let's get back to the video. Let's take an example of applying this rule of thumb. Let's say Daniel earns $86,570 every year. That means he has a monthly income of $7,214. This is about the average one can get in the United States as of 2022. Then Daniel has some outstanding debts. He has a $6,000 balance on credit cards, $15,000 remaining on a car loan, and $9,000 in student loans. His monthly minimum payment on the credit card is $220. The minimum payments he has to make on the car loan is $300, while for the student loan, it is $250. That means his total monthly minimum on debts is $770, which is 10.67% of his gross income. According to the 28 by 36 rule, the percentage of gross income on other debts should not exceed 8%. That is, the maximum Daniel can spend on debts is 36%, with housing expenses taking 28%, while other debts would take 8%. So what should Daniel do? He is above the 8% recommendation. That is where the 28 by 36 rule has a significant advantage over other rules. Daniel cannot exceed the recommended percentage for debts, so either of you would have to concentrate on servicing other debts and wait for some time, or adjust how much of his income he would allocate to debt servicing. The second option is not advisable. In Daniel's neighborhood, private mortgage insurance, PMI, is 0.5%, while property tax is $2,400 annually. Also, home insurance costs $1,000 each year. So if Daniel is patient, after some months, his other debts would get to 8% of his gross income, and he would be able to buy a home worth $400,000 on a 30-year mortgage with an interest rate of 5.1%. This is the most advisable option for him because, with this, he would only be spending $2,020 on mortgage payments, making it 28% of his monthly income, while spending less on other debts that would keep reducing with time. Remember that credit bureaus and mortgage houses use the 28 by 36 rule to determine your eligibility for a loan. But do your research. Applying concepts doesn't take much effort when you have an idea of them. The second rule of thumb is the 30% solution. According to this rule, you should not use more than 30% of your gross income on housing costs. People who want to buy expensive houses can use this rule. However, it allocates a large proportion of your income to housing expenses. Let's retake Daniel's example, who earns $7,214 monthly. According to this rule, he should allocate $2,164 of his monthly income to housing expenses. That means, using a 30-year mortgage, he should now be able to buy a $430,000 house instead of a $400,000 house, as we calculated for the 28 by 36 rule. But this method has a very stark disadvantage. The disadvantage of this rule is that it doesn't consider other debts you may have. Proponents of this rule say that in accounting for other non-housing debts, you need to allocate no more than 20% of your gross income. So if you're in a situation where you are knee-deep in debts, it could be a potentially disastrous situation. The 28 by 36 rule gives you options for allocating other debts and successfully living a fulfilling life. But the 30% rule doesn't account for that. This rule could put you in a tight corner when your financial situation turns awry. Hence, you could end up being house broke in the long run. But on the other hand, if you want to save for retirement, it would not be wise to have so much of your gross income in housing expenses. That is why this rule is not too popular. That then brings us to the third rule. Before I present the third rule of thumb, I want to know your country. It helps me in choosing video titles. Also, if you want me to treat a specific subject in personal finance, put it in the comments section along with your country details. Your topic might just be the next video. Now, let's go on to the third rule. The third rule was popularized by the famous financial expert Dave Ramsey. It states that no more than 25% of your gross income should go to housing expenses. This rule is more conservative than the earlier two. It helps one to account for other debts and expenses. Housing expenses are not the only significant debts people should concentrate on. After all, if you own a house and have other debts crippling your finances, you wouldn't enjoy living in the house. The downside to this method is that it can be tricky getting a house you desire, considering the conservative nature of the allocation for housing expenses. Let's retake Daniel, for example. If he were to allocate only 25% of his gross income to housing expenses, he would have only $1,803 for housing. For such an amount, considering a 30-year mortgage, he would have to settle for a $350,000 house. That means he would need to look at other neighborhoods that are different from his choice if he had used the 28 by 36 rule or 30% rule. If he wanted the $400,000 house, he might have to rent a bedroom or two or list it on Airbnb. This would make his housing cost go below the 25% rule. So these are the three rules of thumb generally used in allocating funds for purchasing a house. But one question people ask is, my situation is different. How can these rules of thumb apply to me? That answer depends on your situation. The rules of thumb should serve as a guide, so you shouldn't use them blindly. There are other things to consider when buying a house apart from the rules of thumb. Some of these include the down payment, furniture, moving expenses, and other appliances. Sometimes it can be overwhelming when you have to make several considerations for a house. That's why seeking professional advice helps. Remember, a house is one of the most significant purchases you can make in your life. That's it for today's video. Thanks for staying until the end. I hope you now have some guidelines to follow when you want to buy a house to avoid getting broke. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so, and also hit the notification bell. Now, if you want to watch more videos like this, then you need to watch this video right here. This video is one of the best on this channel. You can click on this video to watch further.